you can do with goals is make them communicate your goals. Tell people about your goals.
For sure.
Use it to practice.
Yeah, that's it. Ask for advice. Share.
Pronounce it aloud so people will know it, so you should keep your promises.
That's right, that's right. Hold you accountable for your goals. Maybe next time I write goals, I'll be like, okay, you're accountable to help me to be accountable for my goals. So yeah, I think the only thing I would hesitate on is asking people for advice, because it's true that students should learn to do that, but it's also true that you have to make sure the advice that's given is reasonable for you, right? So understanding advice that's positive and will help, and advice that's not. Okay, great. So now we get to our fabulous quotations. Oh, we're ahead of schedule. That's good. I like this particular quote. Oops, no. Yes. So once you have your goals, you have to consider how to achieve them, right? I like this particular quote because I have to repeat it to myself all the time, actually. And that is basically, we all have the same 24 hours. And we're actively choosing what we want to do with them. You're actively choosing to be here as part of your 24 hours in this day. And thank you very much, by the way. I appreciate it. Because you're also supporting me in being here. So being aware of how we're spending our time is extraordinarily important. And what I like to do with students is I had a teacher do this to me. And so I do this to them because this was one of the best learning tools I had in life. And that was I had to write down every single thing I did and how much time it took for 1 week. And I could see patterns in things. For example, patterns of being on the computer, being on email for too much time. I don't need to spend that much time. I could easily open it, close it, and go through, setting time limitations. But I didn't know I had a problem with my time usage until I actually wrote down what it was and what I was spending the time on. Television, big waster of time, right? Sometimes people even argue magazines and things like that are also, but I will not give up Vanity Fair. I don't care what people say. So basically, I just write everything down. And then I set a schedule. And so I schedule in Vanity Fair. So I take like 1 entire month to read 1 magazine. Before, I would have just probably read everything at one time, but I schedule only specific amounts of time, blocks of time, that I have for email, for pleasure reading, for working, stuff like that. And I write it down so that I am accountable to myself. If I mess up, it's no big deal. I start again the next day. You know, that's the thing I also think is important to teach students. Like, don't beat yourself up. There are plenty of people in the world that will beat you up. You don't have to do it also. You know, so be gentle with yourself, because there are some days where I am not wanting a schedule. And on those days, I give myself permission to just create my own day, but then I go back to the schedule later, because I know that this helps me to become more effective in my time management. You'll find eventually you won't need so much a schedule. But in the beginning stages, when you're learning about timing and management and all that, a schedule is really helpful. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Sometimes we overdo, we want to escape from all of that.
Yeah, it's true.
Because without relaxation, a man would go mad without even noticing it. You think about 24 hours a day, and you are persistent, and you work a lot like workaholic to meet your target. But you should be gentle to yourself, I don't know.
No, I absolutely agree. Because that's why I say some days I just take a day off. But the other thing too is like, I think it's our how we conceptualize what is a schedule. For me, a schedule, like, it's not something necessarily related to work. I schedule meditation. I'm just aware that at that time every day, it's something I have to look forward to. You know, first thing when I wake up, I meditate. And I know that that's my schedule. And I probably would have done it anyway, even if I hadn't written it down. So I think, I hear what you're saying, and I get it. But I also think that when we look at what is, wow, I don't know how I did that. That's pretty exciting. What is a schedule? Okay, anyway. When we think about like what a schedule is itself, we oftentimes are conditioned to think of classroom schedule, work schedule, all those associations. So what I'm trying to think of now is how to recontextualize the word and the meaning of schedule so that it does not seem so cumbersome. So it doesn't seem like, oh, now I gotta go do my schedule. Because that's what you're saying, right? That's the frustrating part, that sometimes you don't want a schedule. You want to be able to do whatever it is you want to do. But I've found that just for these purposes, I have a schedule, but I don't write it down anymore. It's just I'm aware of certain times of the day I do certain things. For example, I try to have exercise every day. And today I was a little worried because I had a lot of things to do in the morning. But right before this workshop, I had an hour and a half. I went home, I ran, I got ready, I came back, and that was not originally part of the schedule. But it was on my to-do list for that day. So I was able to tick off exercise. So I think what this is trying to say is just, in the beginning, this is helpful. But at some point, it does seem cumbersome. When it seems cumbersome, that would probably be when you're at a place where you inherently have a schedule that you're already working with and that you feel comfortable and confident in. And then in that time, you can just maybe have a to-do list instead of a schedule. And so you're still actively doing what you need to get done, but you're not like, from 9 to 10, I will check emails. From 10 to 11, I will do this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And are there any forms of reminding yourself about your goals? How can I remind each time myself, not when it is New Year evening and I've just promised to be more organized and stuff like that?
That's really funny that you mentioned New Year, because I never set goals on New Year, because I feel like it's really fake. Because I set goals all year round, and I go through and I assess my goals. So when I first set goals, I'll read through them maybe several times a week, and then I'll put them away. And then maybe I'll revisit them every few months or something like that. Because what I found, actually, inadvertently, I had planned my life when I was 16. And I lost it. I lost my life. I lost my goals. But because I had spent time with them, I still was following my goals, and I didn't even know I was following my goals. Until I was 25, and I found my life again. And I looked at my goals, and I had accomplished every single thing on my list. And that was like, what is that, 9 years in between that I didn't look at my goals. But because I had been so familiar with them and I had really worked on them, when you work on them and making them clear, you're going to remember it. Because you're going to be spending a lot of energy in thinking about what the goals are and what you want to achieve. So it's like inadvertently, you remember and internalize, and then you accomplish it. That's at least what I found for myself. Because I was shocked to look at my goals from when I was 16. First of all, how wonderfully my handwriting was at that time period. Like, it was fantastic. I was like, what happened between now and then that I had such nice handwriting? And then the other thing was that I had accomplished them. The other thing I am going to get right now is what I worked with the youth group on. And with the youth group, we talked about that. How do you remind yourself in a way that's not overwhelming? Because sometimes if you look at a list, you're like, ah, that's too much. Like, there's no way I'm going to accomplish all that. But if you create a visualization board, something like this, first of all, it's creative. And so you're putting your goals to art. And you're really having to understand and think about your goals in order to put them into a visualization board. Because, for example, there are two things on here that may not make sense according to what I've said so far. The first one is, over here I have a Louis Vuitton ad. That has nothing to do with Louis Vuitton. I don't even really like Louis Vuitton. But what it does have to do with is the fact that Bono, the lead singer of U2, is in the ad with his wife. And they're really well known for being extraordinary. Well, they do a lot of philanthropy. Sorry. I'm having already a problem speaking. So they do a lot of philanthropy. I really admire that. They try to be leaders and to encourage people to help others. And so that's a quality that I want in my life. And so that's why I have that ad. He is also a pilot, and he has a private pilot license, and you can see the plane in the background. That's also, if you remember my goals, that was also a goal that I have. So I took a Louis Vuitton ad and turned it into something that it is not. The other thing is that you might notice is that there is a big bathroom in the middle. And one might say, why on earth would you put a bathroom in the middle of your ad? Do you suddenly want to be an interior designer for bathrooms? The answer is no. I do not want to be an interior designer for bathrooms. But what I like about this bathroom is that the architecture of it, so architecturally, it has Asian elements and European elements. And for me, my life, some of you may know I've spent 6+ years in Asia, so in China specifically. And now I am kind of on the European side. So my life is an integration of these two elements, and it makes me feel safe and happy. But it's also an expression of just who I am and who I am becoming. So that's part of what the bathroom represents. The other part of what the bathroom represents is the fact that the bathroom, I like taking baths, right? And so when you take a bath, you can have an excuse to read Vanity Fair and have candles and have tea and like just ignore your cell phone. You know, sorry, it fell in the bath. It broke, I can't answer. So it allows me this time to myself to rejuvenate myself. And so that's what this means. This is a reminder that I must take also time for myself. Otherwise, I will not be able to accomplish the goals. Because as you mentioned, like when you get too stressed out and overwhelmed, you're not going to work for your goals. So this is an example. I might put it where I could see it. Right, I might put it above my desk, for example. My visualization board is much bigger. It takes up almost the entire wall of my bedroom. And so I look at it every day, all the time, and I love it. This was just a sample one.